wanted to show you a project I've been working on for a little while. Being from Rochester, I am unfortunately restricted to 5-round magazines. We have pretty much the strongest gun laws outside of New York City, unfortunately. And so I've been looking for some good, true 5-rounders, especially because I have been focusing on the Ares SCR, and so they have a slightly shorter, actually substantially shorter magwell. So I was looking for potentially shorter magazines as well. And these also could be used, of course, for hunting. I think a lot of places are restricted to 5 rounds for hunting, so this would be an option, certainly. And what I had found were these magazines from Brownells that have these Waffle extensions, but they are true 5-round body, which means they're very short compared to a 10 or a 20-round magazine body. And I like these for a couple of reasons. One, they're true 5-rounders. Nobody can say, oh, that was a 10-round body, blah, blah, blah. But also there's potential to cut some of these off if needed. They are good for getting a grip, for taking them in and out. But if I wanted to, I could certainly cut 1 or 2, or you can't really cut all 3 off. I tried that on one, and what happens is it actually leaves substantial holes in the bottom of your magazine. You can kind of see this butt out here and the tube here. Both of those are open holes if you cut off all 3 of these. But I might look at cutting off 2 of them and just leaving the bottom one. That would work nicely with the Ares SCR. They have 2 styles. They have their original ones. These are aluminum-bodied. And then they also have these Teflon coated ones. These are the newer ones. They're a blacker color. They match closer to the plastic on the body. I've kind of taken one of these apart already. You can see how short this 5-round body is. Like I said, it's a true 5-rounder. And then it has this little retainer for the spring on the bottom. This is the actual spring. You can see there's no extra compressed at the bottom like you get at a 510 or 520. And then it has this follower. And what you can see from this follower is how short the legs are. And this leads to a substantial problem. And I'm not really sure why they're that short, but it leads to some real issues with tilting. You can see how easily I can tilt this whole thing forward. And what happened is every other round that I tried would jam. Literally every other round. And if you look at the reviews on Brownells, people mention this. And so they are terribly reviewed. They are often on extreme sale. I think I picked up these for 10 or 12 bucks a piece on one of their clearance events. They do have loud springs too. You can kind of hear that. Aluminum body, not too surprising. But they're actually not poorly constructed. The bodies themselves and the Waffle's kind of neat. The problem is with the followers. Now the good news is you can get a pack of good old reliable Magpul self-leveling followers in, I don't know, these are foliage green. I have a whole bunch in yellow. They come in all different colors, but you can get a pack of 3 for a few bucks. So if you think about each one of these being 10 to 12 bucks and a pack of followers for a few bucks, you can get magazines fairly easily if you can swap out the followers for very little money. Now, it's not a simple swap. I can't just put this in. If I tried to, you can see there would basically be no compression. I could probably get a round or 2 in there. Okay. What I did through trial and error is I started cutting off some, tried loading them, cut off more, tried loading them, cut off more, tried loading them, and I found where they started to really work well. And then on one of them, because I was having trouble loading on a closed bolt, not unusual for an AR, but the usual fix of loading 28 and a 30 doesn't work when you're talking about loading 3 and a 5. It's not exactly ideal. So I tried cutting one a little bit shorter and past that point where they were performing well and got to the point where it was a little too short and they had feeding problems. So what I have found has worked, and will give you an angle roughly similar to the bottom of the base plate here, is a 1/2 inch on the front and 0.7 inches on the back. So I will literally take my calipers, measure off a 1/2 inch here, measure off 0.7 inches here, cut them down, pop them in, and they are fantastic magazines after that. Okay, getting these open is not too bad. There's a little hole right there, follows this tube. There's a little bump on this follower that sticks up through, like I said, this is the one I cut off, but it sticks up through this hole. Normally the waffle would be here, and that's what locks it in. And so you can take any simple tool, push it there, and it only slides one way, but pops right off. Okay, get your tool out, slide that off, there's your waffle. Okay, you can see the holes that are there, but if I cut it with leaving one of these, it would only have the release hole in there. Okay, and that's actually covered, so that wouldn't be an issue. The problem with this one is that it lines up with that big hole, and you get a big opening to drop all kinds of gunk and junk in your magazine, which is no good. Plus the front also has a little hole. So if you cut just to the first one, the only hole is that release hole. Okay. Once you have that, this is the kind of tricky part. Just kind of push in this thing and tilt it. I'm sure there's other ways to get them out, but once you do that, get it out, catch your spring, otherwise it can go flying. Also make sure you hold on to this well, or you can shoot it across the room. I have done that once. That was fun. Fortunately, I ended up shooting it somewhere where I could find it easily. Okay, pull that out. There's your magazine body. There's your crappy follower. There's your spring. You'll note that the spring goes in through the side and loops around to the back. So just remember that when you're putting that on your new follower. Okay, and that the coil comes from the back and goes to the front for this little short section. Also remember that, and everything will go in correctly. Okay, at this point, just take your old follower off, slide it. It's hard to do with camera in my way. Toss it aside. It's absolute junk. Throw it in the garbage. Take this again, go to 1/2 inch, measure, do it on both sides, mark off a straight line, mark off 0.7 inches here, mark off another straight line, take a hacksaw or something, get your 0.5 to 0.7 straight line, cut it off, and it'll be ready to install. I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll start up again after. And there you have it. Just maybe a minute later, a brand new follower, 0.5 in the front, 0.7 in the back. Like I said, matches up nicely so that, and this is horizontal, matches the bottom of the magazine. Okay, slides very nicely. Again, we take our spring, get that spring in the hole, pop that back in there, fits around those ears tightly, but gets on there. And now you have a nice self-leveling Magpul follower. Take your plate here. Okay, there are two sides. There's this one with the circles on it and more of a squared edge peg, and then we have no circles here and a rounded peg on there. This actually goes towards you. This goes into the magazine, so circles in, you get the nice licking edge towards you, and then you can see the larger tracks here, smaller ones here. Larger tracks line up with that. There's also a lip on one end, but not on the other end, so you're going to have to slide in from that end. You can probably tilt it as well. So what I found, easiest thing is just to push the spring in there, bring that like that, slide it down until it locks the spring in place and fits in there nicely. Follower works. Now we take this. Again, it only slides in one way. Obviously you want it like this, not like that. Put it like this. There's a lip on this end. So start to push this in a little bit. Slide this down. When you get to that bump, push it out of the way. Boom. Magazine is complete. Great yellow follower. Works reliably. And there you go. How to fix the Brownells 5-round Waffle magazines.